Okay, so we all know the PS2 was the king of early 2000s gaming, sold like 155 million units, made a freaking impact, and gave us some of the most unforgettable games ever. But here's the thing, lots of those games look like ancient relics now. Blocky faces, weird textures, clunky controls. Yeah, we've all seen that. But some of them, PS2 games, man, they still look amazing today. Like they've aged like a fine whiskey, or better yet, that vintage leather jacket you pull out every now and then and it just fits perfectly. These games weren't just good for their time. They're still visually stunning, atmospheric, and totally worth dusting off or discovering for the first time. So buckle up because I'm about to take you on a tour of some PS2 gems that still hit hard visually and emotionally in 2025. And yeah, I'll be yapping a lot because these games deserve love and deep dives. Shadow of the Colossus. Alright, where do I even start with this beast? Shadow of the Colossus is like the poster child for less is more. This game isn't about flashy graphics or crowded levels, it's about atmosphere and scale, and wow does it deliver. First off, the sense of scale is still mind-blowing. You're this tiny dude with a horse running around a giant empty land hunting down colossal creatures that tower over you like gods. The game nails this epic, lonely vibe with these huge crumbling ruins and a haunting, almost silent soundtrack that makes the world feel alive in the quietest way possible. The graphics were, yeah, technically it's rough around the edges, the textures are blurry if you look really close and the animations can feel a little stiff, but the art direction, the color palette, the lighting, they are straight up gorgeous. The way sunlight breaks through clouds or the dust kicks up as you climb these massive colossi, it all feels cinematic and alive. And don't even get me started on the design of the colossi themselves. Each one feels like a living, breathing mountain with its own personality and style. Climbing them is this epic challenge that makes you feel tiny but determined. Plus, the story is simple but super powerful. No dialogue, just this mysterious journey, and you fill in the blanks with your own feelings. It's weird, it's sad, it's beautiful. If you haven't played it in a while, give the PS2 or the remaster a spin. It's a masterclass in mood and visual storytelling, and honestly, it's one of the most beautiful games to ever grace a console. Okami. Okay, now Okami. This one is a whole vibe. It's a love letter to Japanese mythology and art wrapped in one of the coolest visual styles on the PS2. Imagine if a Japanese watercolor painting came alive and you got to control it. That's basically Okami. The graphics are like nothing else on the PS2. Thick flowing brushstrokes, bright colors, and this almost hand-painted look. The entire game looks like a moving painting. It's so unique that even today it stands out like a sore thumb. But Okami isn't just a looker. The gameplay blends action, puzzle solving, and a celestial brush mechanic where you actually draw on the screen to change the world, fight enemies, or solve puzzles. This is seriously creative stuff for its time, and it still feels fresh today. Plus, the story is full of charm and heart. You play as Amaterasu, a sun goddess in the form of a white wolf, on a mission to save the world from darkness. The writing is goofy, sweet, and full of quirky characters that make the game feel like a living storybook. Okami is one of those rare games that's equal parts art and game, and honestly, if you haven't played it, you're missing out on one of the most unique visual experiences ever made. God of War 2005. God of War was and even is an absolute beast on PS2, and it's not just about hack and slash carnage. This game is a perfect storm of brutal combat, epic storytelling, and some seriously cinematic moments that still look dope today. First off, the visuals. Even by today's standards, the game has this gritty, dark, mythological vibe that's so well done. The character models are super detailed for the time, especially Kratos, that bald Spartan with the red tattoo and the rage issues. His animation animations fluid and satisfying. Watching him rip through enemies with those blades of chaos feels visceral, but what really makes it stand out visually is the environment design. The levels are like giant puzzle boxes of Greek architecture, massive temples, creepy underworlds, and massive monsters you'd never want to run into IRL. The lighting effects are surprisingly atmospheric for the PS2, especially in the darker parts like the Temple of Pandora. Those flickering torches, eerie shadows, and sudden monster attacks keep you on edge. The boss fights, man, they're epic. Like huge gods and monsters that don't just look intimidating, they feel alive and massive. Climbing on them, dodging their attacks, smashing their weak spots. It's an experience that's still so thrilling and cinematic. So yeah, God of War on PS2 isn't just a good game, it's a milestone in action gaming that still looks and plays great. It's raw, violent, cinematic, and honestly, a bit of a masterpiece. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Alright, let's slide into some sneaky spy action with MGS3. This game is a whole experience wrapped in espionage, jungle survival, and Cold War paranoia, and honestly, it's one of the best looking PS2 games when you really take it in. The jungle setting is gorgeous for PS2 standards. The dense foliage, lighting filtering through leaves, and the animal life create this tense atmosphere where you feel like you're really sneaking through hostile territory. The game's attention to detail in the environment is next level for the time. You can even use camouflage to blend in, which sounds simple, but totally changes how you approach stealth. The gameplay mixes stealth, survival, and action in a way that still feels fresh. You have to manage Snake's stamina, heal injuries, hunt for food. It's like a tactical simulation wrapped in a spy thriller. And those boss fights? Classic MGS. Dramatic, inventive, and memorable. The fight against the end, the sniper showdown in the jungle, is legendary for its tension. Resident Evil 4. Alright, time for some horror, but Resident Evil 4 isn't your typical survival horror. It's more like a perfect blend of horror, action, and some seriously slick visuals. The graphics blew everyone's minds back then. The villagers in the Spanish countryside are detailed and creepy as hell, with animations that really sell the horror vibe. Leon Kennedy, our main guy, is well modeled and has smooth animations, especially during combat and aiming. The over-the-shoulder camera was groundbreaking and gave the game this fresh, immersive feel that still influences shooters today. The environments are super diverse, spooky villages, abandoned castles, creepy labs, all dripping with atmosphere. You'll find yourself holding your breath in tight spaces, surrounded by enemies that never let you relax. And also the gameplay in RE4 it's a masterclass in pacing, balancing moments of intense action with pure horror suspense. The enemy design is iconic. Those fast, aggressive ganados will mess you up if you're not careful. Boss fights are huge and memorable with some crazy designs and cinematic moments. Final Fantasy X. Okay, so buckle up. Final Fantasy X is an absolute classic JRPG that came out looking gorgeous on PS2 and still holds up with its emotional story and memorable characters. Graphically, the game made huge leaps for its time. The character models are super expressive, which was kinda new back then for RPGs. Cutscenes flow seamlessly with the gameplay, making the whole story feel like a movie. Plus, the world of Spira is beautifully designed. Lush jungles, sandy beaches, towering temples, all dripping with personality and culture. The turn-based battle system is streamlined but deep. The sphere grid leveling system lets you customize your character's growth in a way that feels organic and rewarding. Battles themselves are satisfying with flashy attacks and summons called Aeons that are some of the coolest things you'll see in JRPGs even today. speaking of summons, the cinematics for those Aeons are some of the most memorable moments in gaming. When you call down that huge, flaming, or monstrous creature to wreck a boss, it feels epic every single time. The voice acting was a big deal back then, the first FF to have full voice acting in cutscenes, and it adds a lot of personality to the characters, plus Nobuo Uematsu's soundtrack were straight up legendary. Final Fantasy X is the kind of game that pulls you in with its world and characters, and once you're in, it's hard to let go. Plus, it still looks really nice today if you can stand the dated character designs. Some love them, some don't.
Well, I'm fighting.
Yuna! This is our story. Now let's see this thing through together.
Onimusha 3, Demon Siege. Okay, so hear me out. Onimusha 3 is like if you took Resident Evil, sprinkled in some samurai sword fights, added a time travel twist, and then just said screw it and dropped Jean Renault into the game. Yes, that Jean Renault from Leon the Professional on the friggin' PS2. This game was wild. So here's the setup. You start off in feudal Japan, fighting off demonic creatures called Genma. You're this badass samurai named Samanosuke, stoic, noble, and just slicing through evil like it's nothing. Suddenly, bam! Time portal! You get sucked into modern-day Paris. Meanwhile, Jean Renault's character Jacques Blanc, a French cop, gets pulled back into ancient Japan. Yeah, it's a full-on Freaky Friday situation, but with swords and shotguns and demons running wild. The cool part? You actually play both characters, switching back and forth between timelines to solve puzzles and progress the story. Like, you'll do something in feudal Japan, say open a gate, and that affects Paris in the present. It's super clever and adds a whole layer of strategy and flavor to what could have been just another action slasher. Now the combat, oh man, it's slick. You've got these sweet sword combos, elemental weapons, magic attacks, and a soul-sucking gauntlet that lets you absorb enemy souls to upgrade gear. When you hit the rhythm right and chain combos, it feels so damn satisfying. Think Devil May Cry, but a little slower and chunkier, with a heavier vibe. And when you do an Isen, a perfect parry that lets you instantly kill an enemy with a flash of your blade was so perfect. Perfectly? This game pushed the PS2 hard. The environments were detailed, the cutscenes were high budget, and the character models looked amazing, especially Jean Renault. Capcom literally scanned his face and modeled the character after him. It was a huge deal back then. Dude even speaks French in some scenes, which just adds to the cool factor. But what really makes Onimusha 3 shine is how cinematic it feels. From the sweeping orchestral score to the explosive, high-energy intro cutscene. Seriously, YouTube that. It still slaps. The game had this big blockbuster energy. Like Capcom said, let's make a samurai action movie you can play. And it's not just flash, it's got heart too. There's this emotional bond between Jacques and his kid, a friendship that builds between him and Samanosuke across time, and even some bittersweet moments that hit harder than you'd expect from a game with demon monkeys and time rifts. It's kinda sad Onimusha as a series doesn't get talked about much these days, but Demon Siege was the peak. Stylish, creative, fun as hell, and still fully playable today. It feels like a lost classic that's begging for a comeback. Jak 3. This game came out in 2004. On paper, it's a PS2 action clamler, but in practice, it felt like Naughty Dog was straight up challenging Rockstar and saying, yo, we can do open world too, and we can do it on this toaster. So, Jak 3 throws you right into this giant open desert, right? You're out in this wasteland city called Spargus with crazy vehicles, sandstorms, giant towers in the distance, and all of it just loads in like it's no big deal. No loading screens, no weird hitches, just smooth. And I'm sitting here like, bro, even some PS3 games were struggling to do this kind of open world flow, but it's not just the world, it's everything stacked on top of it. This game has third-person shooting, high-speed buggy racing, platforming, grinding on rails, hoverboarding, even magic powers. Like literally Jak can go full dark Jak and tear stuff up, or flip to light Jak and slow down time. All that running at the same time on a PS2. How And let me just say this, visually still holds up. The colors in this game, the lighting in the desert, the city design, the way the sand kicks up behind your car when you're speeding across the dunes, it all just looks awesome. It doesn't feel like a PS2 game. It feels like a game that snuck out of the PS3 early. And I gotta talk about the characters. Jack actually has a voice now. Well, he started talking in Jack 2, but here it's more balanced. He's still kind of an edgy guy, yeah, but you get more depth to him this time. He's dealing with rejection, with having all this power, with figuring out who he even is. And then you got Daxter just being a chaotic little orange legend like always. He's the glue that holds the vibe together. Honestly, this game didn't have to go this hard, but it did. Naughty Dog was on a different level. It's like they looked at the PS2 and said, nah, we're not listening to the rules. So if you've never played Jack 3, or if it's been a minute, go back. Seriously, it's one of those games where you boot it up and just go, there's no way this thing actually ran on a PS2. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. Alright, so here's the thing. Back in the early 2000s, most PS2 games were going for that gritty realism look, you know, dusty browns, dark shadows, everything trying to be edgy. And then Sly Cooper shows up like, nah, I'm gonna look like a Saturday morning cartoon that moves at 60 frames per second. And the wild part? It actually worked. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, yeah, long name, but it sounds cool as hell, looked nothing like anything else at the time. The cel-shaded art style was bold, like comic book bold. It had these thick black outlines, super bright colors, and a whole visual flair that felt like you were literally playing an animated movie. But here's what blew people away. It wasn't just stylish, it was clean. But like buttery smooth clean. Seriously, this game ran at a solid 60 FPS, which is crazy for the PS2. Most games back then were barely hitting 30. But Sly Cooper, just zooming across rooftops, sneaking through lasers, diving into vaults, and everything moved like silk. The animation was so fluid it almost felt illegal. Like this shouldn't have worked on the PS2, but it did. And then the level design, man, every area felt like a mini heist movie. You've got all these different themed zones, a spooky swamp, a snowy mountaintop, a high security museum, and each one had its own mood, music, and tricks to mess with. It was sneaky but also playful, like you could tell the devs were having fun with it. What I love about Sly Cooper is how it nails that perfect balance. It's a stealth game, yeah, but it's not stressful. You're not stuck crawling around for 10 minutes. It's more like, hey, let's sneak around with style. Sly has this smooth little swagger when he walks, and the way he hugs corners, tiptoes on wires, or slides across railings just makes you feel cool while playing. Also, the story. It's simple but super charming. You're trying to reclaim your family's legacy piece by piece by stealing back pages of the Thievius Raccoonus, this old book full of master thief techniques, and you're doing it with your two homies, Bentley, the nerdy turtle with all the plans, and Murray, the hype man hippo. It's a weird crew, but it works. So yeah, Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus wasn't just a cool game, it was a whole vibe. It looked better than it had any right to, it moved smoother than most PS3 games, and it gave us a stealth platformer that was actually fun instead of frustrating.
Booming chop! Fiery wheel!
Viewtiful Joe 1 and 2. So here comes Viewtiful Joe, originally a GameCube exclusive from Clover Studios. Yep, the same crew that later gave us Okami and God Hand. Capcom eventually brought it over to PS2, and everyone was like, wait, how are they gonna pull this off? Because here's the thing, Viewtiful Joe is a 2.5D side-scrolling beat-em-up, but with the energy of a full-blown anime fight scene. Like, imagine playing a Saturday morning cartoon, but with slow-mo, zoom-ins, crazy explosions, and wild visual effects everywhere. Joe's got powers that let him slow time, speed up, zoom the camera for impact hits, and you can actually use these mechanics during combat and puzzles. So it's not just flashy, it's game-changing. And the PS2 version, it actually held its own. Sure, maybe the resolution wasn't quite as sharp as the GameCube's, and there was the occasional frame drop when things got super crazy, but still, the fact that it worked at all is wild. All those VFX flying around, the particle effects, the screen distortions, the transitions between layers of the background, it's just constant chaos. Controlled chaos, but still chaos. Now, Viewtiful Joe 2, that one cranked things up even more. New abilities, new characters, even more complex stages. Sylvia joins the action, and suddenly you're tag teaming between characters with their own powers. Joe still had the slow-mo and fast-forward stuff, but now you had to start combining them. It got a little tougher, a little more puzzly, but still stayed true to the vibe. And let's not forget the challenge. These games are hard, like surprisingly tough. The combat feels so good when you master it, but it demands fast reflexes and smart timing. This wasn't just a button masher, it was a thinking man's action brawler. If you messed up your slow-mo dodge or zoomed at the wrong time, you're getting bodied. Burnout 3 Takedown. Burnout 3 Takedown is one of those games that felt like the PS2 was just about to explode the whole time, and somehow it didn't. It thrived. This game shouldn't have worked this well on that hardware, but it did. And it did it at full freaking speed. Okay, Burnout 3 Takedown is a game that honestly makes me feel like the PS2 was just clenching its little digital teeth the whole time, going, please don't crash. Like, this game is a roller coaster, a full speed, full-blown, explosion-filled thrill ride that never stops moving. And somehow it runs, like, really well. First off, this thing came out in 2004, right around the time people were starting to push the PS2 to its limits. And Burnout 3 didn't just push, it drop-kicked the console right in the GPU. We're talking ultra-fast arcade racing, cinematic camera angles, metal-on-metal crashes, sparks, explosions, reflections, motion blur, AI traffic, multiple cars wrecking at once, all happening at like 150 miles per hour. And somehow the PS2 just kept going like, yep, I got this. Like, this is where the specs should have been a bottleneck. 32 MB of RAM, 4 MB of video memory. That's nothing. That's less than the textures on one car in a modern game. But Criterion Games, they found a way. They basically wrote custom rendering tools to trick the PS2 into thinking it was stronger than it actually was. This thing's pulling off crash slow-mo shots while the AI is still driving behind you. It's managing physics calculations mid-wreck while throwing motion blur and sparks and debris flying in every direction. And can we talk about the takedowns? They were so cool. This wasn't just racing, this was vehicular combat. You weren't just trying to finish first, you were trying to send other racers into billboards, semis, and gas tankers at 120 miles speed. You slam into them, the camera zooms in, slows down, and you get this beautiful, crunchy metal ballet of destruction. It's violent, but in that cool arcadey way where you're just yelling, let's go, the whole time. And the game just felt incredible to play. The controls were tight, the speed was insane, and the boost system made every second feel like life or death. You're drifting through traffic, dodging oncoming cars, threading the needle between semis, and then, bam, takedown, instant dopamine hit. The game also looked really good, like shockingly good. The reflections on the cars were real time, the sparks and fire effects during crashes were crispy, environments were packed with detail from downtown streets to coastal highways to rainy cityscapes, and everything felt fast. There was never a dull moment, even just driving clean was satisfying, but crashing, that was art. TimeSplitters Future Perfect.
We took care of them.
This game was doing everything. It was fast, it was packed, it was funny, it had co-op, it had multiplayer, it had a freaking map editor, and it all worked, like, really well. I still don't get it. Oh yeah, this dropped in 2005, right? That's like pretty late in the PS2's life, which means devs were squeezing every last drop out of that thing, and Free Radical, they weren't just squeezing, they were basically waterboarding the PS2 to pull this off. And if you never played it, man, you missed out. You play as this guy Cortez, this big bald meathead action hero who's basically part Duke Nukem, part Vin Diesel, but with actual jokes that land. Dude's hilarious. The story jumps across all these different time periods, future, past, haunted mansions, war zones, and you're basically just shooting everything in sight while making dumb quips. The levels are actually cool too, like they're built around time travel in ways that are way smarter than you'd expect. There's this whole mechanic where you meet your past self or future self and you help you, and later you are the version that helps yourself earlier. Sounds confusing when I say it like that, but in game it's honestly sick. You're like, oh, I'm the guy I saw 20 minutes ago. And it's just a cool little moment. Now here's where it gets stupid, the amount of stuff in this game. You had full-on story co-op that's rare for the time, then there's multiplayer, not just online, but split screen with bots too, and like actually smart bots. You could play for hours and not even notice you weren't online. And then on top of that, it had a freaking level editor. On a PS2, you could build custom maps with traps, elevators, secret rooms, save them to your memory card and battle it out with friends. Just what? It still ran smooth, not perfectly, okay, there were a few frame drops when things got real nuts, but for what it was doing, it was a great achievement. Oh, and the characters were hilarious in this game. You could play as a monkey, a gingerbread man, a robot, a freaking fish in a suit. It was straight up chaos. They just threw everything in there and said, yeah, let's roll with it. So yeah, this game had vibes. It was fun, it was goofy, it had that late night energy where you and your friends are just yelling and laughing while shooting at each other as monkeys. And somehow, the PS2 kept up. Honestly, TimeSplitters Future Perfect is one of those games that makes you realize just how far devs could push old tech when they really knew what they were doing. It wasn't just impressive, it was kind of inspiring, and also just a damn good time.
Let's go, Marines! Marines, you want to live forever?
SSX3. Okay, so let me set the scene. You come home from school, it's 2003, you throw your bag on the floor, grab a soda, and fire up SSX3, and boom! That menu music hits. That snowboard drops down from the top of the screen, and you just know it's about to be a vibe. Not just a fun game, a vibe. Like, SSX3 didn't just want you to race, it wanted you to chill, flow, feel the mount. It was cool in a way most games still aren't. Somehow, SSX3 managed to throw this massive open mountain at you. No loading screens, no clunky menus between races, just you and this gigantic snow-covered beast, top to bottom, where you could ride for like 20 real minutes without ever hitting a loading screen. You just dropped in and went. How that mountain wasn't just for show either. You had different zones, peak 1, 2, and 3, each one harder, faster, more insane than the last. The weather would change, snowstorms would hit, avalanches, nighttime races, even firework shows mid-run. Like, bro, what? On a PS2? It felt like the mountain was alive or something. And then there's the gameplay. Oh man. SSX3 nailed that perfect blend of easy to play, hard to master. Like, yeah, you could button mash and have fun, sure, but if you took the time to really learn how to link those tricks, hold that grab, hit that grind rail just right, it was pure flow state. You'd be flipping, spinning, grinding over power lines, and then boom, land it perfectly and drop right into a race. And the tricks? Ridiculous. You're pulling off stuff that'd snap your spine in real life. Front flips off mountaintops, backflips into grinds, grabs that'd make a gymnast jealous. The animations were buttery smooth too, like it looked good. SSX3 had this real clean, crisp art style. A little cartoony, but not in a bad way, just aged super well. Oh, and the characters? Legends. You got Mac, Elise, Simon, all these snowboarders with big personalities and even bigger drip. They weren't just generic avatars, they felt like cool people. You wanted to hang out with them. Every character had their own music, their own style, their own energy. You could spend hours just trying to max them out and unlock all their gear. And again, let's not forget, this was a PS2 game. Like, what? That system was not built for open world sports games. But EA Big went full galaxy brain and pulled it off anyway. No loading screens, a living mountain, a full soundtrack, crazy animations, and it all worked, and worked well. It felt like magic. Guitar Hero 2. So first off, let's just appreciate how weirdly genius this idea was. Like, you're not moving characters, you're not exploring levels, you're just hitting colored notes on a screen with a tiny toy guitar. That sounds dumb, right? But Guitar Hero 2 made it feel like you were front row at a sold-out stadium, shredding on stage while the crowd lost their minds. Now let's talk about that guitar. That plastic Gibson SG looking thing, that was magic. It wasn't even wireless. It had that chunky cord dragging across your carpet, but when you flicked that strum bar and nailed a 5-note streak, it felt like you were actually playing something. You'd start bobbing your head, moving around like an idiot, and boom, you're suddenly in a cover band playing Sweet Child O' Mine in your parents' living room. And visually? Okay, yeah, it was kind of goofy. The crowd looked like cardboard cutouts, and the band animations were janky as hell, but honestly, it worked. They leaned into the cheesiness, the art style was cartoony, the characters were all over-the-top rock cliches, and the whole vibe was like some weird animated MTV fever dream, and it totally sold the fantasy. Also, massive shout out to the set list. This was where Guitar Hero 2 flexed. Classic rock, metal, punk, even some weird deep cuts you'd never heard of but suddenly loved. They didn't always have the real versions, a lot were covers, but you barely noticed because the energy was just right. You'd start the night not knowing half the songs and end it with every riff burned into your brain forever. And remember, this was pre-DLC, pre-streaming, you couldn't just download new tracks. The game had to fit every song, every chart, every animation, and all those menus on a single DVD. And the PS2 just handled it. No crazy load times, no crashing, it just worked. So yeah, looking back now, Guitar Hero 2 was kind of a miracle, not just for how good it was, but how it all worked on hardware that old. It didn't just play music, it made you feel like you were playing music, and that's something no other game really did at the time.